How do you suppose I made this? It's a curvy leg for a table or a chair or maybe a bench. I made this from this straight chunk of wood. I didn't bend it to get this shape, but how could I cut it out of such a narrow piece? It's a really clever technique that just blows people's minds when I show it to them. Let me show you how. Then I'll show you some cool things that you can do with this idea. Start with a leg blank that's equal in thickness to its width. You might just glue a couple 2x4s together just to try it out. Now draw your shape. You can make any combination of curves you like. Just keep in mind that you have to remain within the confines of the blank's width. That means staying at least a little bit away from the edges and the corners. All of the rough shaping is done with a bandsaw. Mine is equipped with a 1/4 inch wide blade. I like to use the fence to cut that straight portion at the top. Since this is a table leg, I'll need that to connect later. But the rest of the shape is cut freehand. Try to make your cuts smoothly. If you drift away from your line, don't make a sharp correction. Just alter the shape a little bit and keep your curves gradual. When you're finished, trace the shape you ended up with on a piece of paper or cardboard to make a template. Now reassemble the two halves of the blank and use some tape to hold them together. Note how my templates line up with the original cut. Keep that orientation, but roll the blank 90 degrees to the right and trace the template on that face. Again, try to cut smooth curves. Drifting away from your line a little bit is better than making sharp corrections because we're going to essentially turn this blank inside out. So a rough sawn curve will make for a rough outer surface and a lot more sanding later. When you finish the second cut, remove the tape and separate the legs into two halves, each with two pieces. Reverse the two pieces in each half, then sandwich them together and you have your leg. I recommend numbering the tops so you can keep track of the orientation as you glue them together. This can be a bit of a puzzle. It's easiest to glue the leg up one half at a time because it can be difficult to keep the pieces aligned as you apply the clamps. So I shot in a couple headless pin nails to reduce slippage. You don't want a bunch of pins because you'll be sanding and rasping to refine the shapes later. After about an hour or so, you can put your two halves together to complete the leg. While those dry, let me show you something else you can do that's interesting. Remember how I used a template to be sure the two cuts produced identical curves? Well, you don't have to do that. You can cut two different freeforms and just see what happens. For example, on this scrap of wood, you can see the first curve I cut was hollow, hump, hollow. But the second cut was hump, hollow, hump. Pretty much the opposite shape. Notice the result compared to these other two legs, which were made using a template so that both cuts were identical. They feature different shapes, one with a foot that angles outward and the other with a foot that angles inward. But both curve along a single plane, which can be seen from the side, but not from the front. The blank made with two mismatched opposite shaped cuts curves along two planes, which you can see from all directions. With experimentation, you can come up with your own unique designs. But don't forget, you can experiment in miniature. These are just little pieces of 2x2 stock that I would normally just throw away, but they help me wrap my head around the process and the possibilities. Once the leg is dry, you can even further refine the shape with sandpaper or rasps. It's a surprisingly easy process. Give it a try and show it to people. See if they can figure out how you did it. Now here's something else that's really clever. This is obviously not something that they invented, but they made it more affordable, significantly so. And that's a good thing because this will make your table saw safer to use. On the bottom are grippy pads to control both halves of a workpiece throughout the cutting process, while the angled handle on top encourages pressure against the fence and down on the table at the same time. Now this greatly reduces the chance that an offcut will turn and bind between the blade and the fence, which is a major cause of kickback and amputations. The body of the jig also bridges over the top of the saw blade, protecting your hand should something go wrong if you don't have a blade guard installed. You can even use two of them together to walk longer rips through the blade for a more fluid, smoother feed with maximum control and protection. Because every situation is different, the Grabber Pro is adjustable. You can change the configuration of the soles to cut strips as narrow as 1/8 of an inch without cutting into the block. If you want extra stability for narrow workpieces, you can lower the support foot on the side. And there's a removable, replaceable sacrificial heel catch on the back for even more pushing power. I make as many cuts as possible with my table saw's blade guard in place. But when you do have to remove the guard, or if your saw doesn't have a guard, this is a significant safety upgrade in my opinion. And it can be used on the router table, on the jointer, even on the bandsaw. So you're going to get a lot of use from your investment. As I said, it's significantly less expensive than the other version on the market, yet the build quality is excellent. And the Grabber Pro comes with both 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch thin strip attachments right out of the box. And when you consider that, I think it comes in at almost half the price. So do yourself a favor and use the link below this video to check it out for yourself.